Hey, fourth grade, we are going to work on Unit 4, Lesson 2 today, which involves making reasonable estimates for products. Remember, products is talking about multiplication, so we're going to be making estimates and evaluating the reasonableness of our answers as we solve multi-step story problems today. Before we get started, I need you to make sure you have your slate, marker, everyday math journal, and a pencil. For our warm-up today, you're going to find the next 5 multiples of the numbers 5 and 3. Remember, a multiple, the first multiple of 5 is 5 times 1, which is 5. The second multiple of 5 is 5 times 2, which is 10. Your job is to find the next 5 multiples of the numbers 5 and 3. Pause your video and do that now. All right, hopefully you said that the next 5 multiples of 5 were 10, which is 10 times 2, 15, 10 times 3, 20, 5 times 4, 25, 5 times 5, and 30, 5 times 6. The next 5 multiples of 3 are 6, which is 3 times 2. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 5 is 15, and 3 times 6 is 18. How'd you do? Today, we're going to estimate products of large numbers. Remember, you can use front-end estimation, find close to numbers, or round your numbers when we estimate. Estimating is a great strategy for being able to check our actual answers to make sure that they make sense. This is called checking to see if it's reasonable. That's what we're going to be doing today. Before we get started with the actual problems in our journal, you're going to need to open another tab and go to the Everyday Math website. Then you'll click on the e-toolkit, which is the green button, and then you'll find the calculator, which I've circled here at the bottom. We're going to use the calculator today to be able to actually solve these larger problems after we make our estimates. So you need to make sure you have your calculator ready and available. As a reminder, when we do story problems, we must use cubes to solve the problems. We start by circling the numbers, then we underline the question, we box the action words, we make a plan, and then we solve. Now you're going to turn to page 108 in your math journal. I will model this problem for you, and when we're finished, you'll copy it into your journal. A housefly beats its wings about 190 times per second. A wasp can beat its wings about 400 times per second. About how many more times does a wasp beat its wings in 1 minute compared to a housefly? Okay, so we know we're talking about bugs that fly. We're comparing a housefly and how many times it beats or flaps its wings. This is a synonym for flap. So how many times does a housefly flap its wings compared to how many times does a wasp flap its wings? So let's do cubes. So I'm going to read the problem again and do cubes when I look at the story problem. A housefly beats its wings about 190 times per second. A wasp can beat its wings about 400 times per second. About how many more times does a wasp beat its wings in 1 minute compared to a housefly? My action words here are how many more times. About how many more times does a wasp beat its wings in 1 minute compared to a housefly? So, what I know here, because when I'm on my cubes, I circled my numbers, I underlined my question, I boxed my action words. I'm evaluating right now, and then I'll solve. So, what I know is that there is a housefly. And the housefly beats its wings 190 times in 1 second. I know that the wasp beats its wings 400 times in 1 second. The question is asking me how many more times does a wasp beat its wings in 1 minute compared to a housefly? Right now, I don't know how many times it beats its wings in 1 minute. I don't know that. But how many seconds are in a minute? 60 seconds is the same as 1 minute. So I need to be able to figure out how many times does the housefly flap its wings in 1 minute, 60 seconds, compared to the amount of times in 1 minute the wasp flaps its wings. I need both of those information pieces here to be able to solve the problem, to be able to tell how many more times a wasp beats its wings compared to a housefly. So, to be able to figure out to solve for H down here, I can do my estimate, right? And to get how many times they flap their wings for the housefly in 60 seconds, I can do, if I know that 190 times are in 1 second, I can round that up to the nearest 100, which would be 200 times. And how many seconds am I going to be doing this for? Times 60 seconds, and we can do that. Even though we'll be able to solve that pretty quickly. 200 times, it's about 200 times 60 seconds, that will give us H here. We can use the strategy of multiplying multiples of 10 using the first digit, finding the basic fact, which is what we did in our lesson yesterday. So 2 times 6 is 12. And then I'm going to carry over my zeros here, and I'm going to get that the housefly beats its wings about 12,000 times in 1 minute. Does that answer my question? No, not yet. So now I need to find the estimate of how many times the wasp beats its wings in 1 minute. So I can do 400 times 60 seconds. I'm going to use that same strategy of finding my basic fact and then adding on the zeros. So 4 times 6 gives me 24. And then I'm going to count my zeros, and I have 3 zeros to add on to the end. And that equals W. So that tells me that the wasp beats its wings about 24,000 times in 1 minute. When I do the rest of the problem, the question isn't saying how many times does the housefly flap its wings in a minute. It says how many more times does the wasp beat its wings compared to the housefly. So I need to do the wasp. I'm going to change my color here. The wasp minus the housefly, and that's going to give me my difference. That's going to give me my answer. So when I write my estimate on my line, I'm going to do exactly what we did first. The first thing we did was 200 times 60 equals 12,000. That was the first thing we did. I also did 400 times 60 equals 24,000. That's my first step. Then I have to do my WASP, which was 24,000, minus my housefly, which is 12,000, and that will give me my answer. That will tell me how many more times that the wasp beats its wings compared to a housefly in 1 minute. And I know that 24,000 minus 12,000 is 12,000. That's my estimate. To find my actual answer, this is where I would go to my calculator and I would do the same steps, except I won't do my rounding or my estimating. So in my calculator, I would first type in to figure out the housefly. The housefly will be 190 times 60, which gives me 11,400. And then my wasp would be the same that we originally started with because we didn't have to round that. So it was 400 times 60, which was 24,000. Then I would punch in my calculator 24,000 minus 11,400. And that would give me my answer of 12,600. That's what I typed into my calculator. The next part says, is our answer reasonable? We know that our answer is reasonable because it's very close to our estimate. So yes, our answer is reasonable. I know my answer, I'm restating the question, is reasonable because 12,600 times is very close to my estimate of 12,000 times. Okay, so we did cubes, we found our estimate, we solved with the calculator, and we figured out if our answer was reasonable. These problems take a lot of thinking and a lot of work, don't they? Go ahead and pause your video, copy this down, and then we're going to move on to the next problem. You need to have all of the same work that I have on my page shown. You need to have where it says housefly written down with all of that information, wasp, all of it needs to match mine. Now let's take a look at number 2. Number 2 says the best cows give about 400 cups of milk every day. The best goats give about 8 cups of milk every day. About how many more cups of milk will a cow give in 1 year than a goat? So let's go back and read the problem and do cubes. You're going to do this with me as I read it aloud. So grab your pencil and you need to write and do cubes with me. The best cow gives about 400 cups of milk every day. The best goat gives about 8 cups of milk every day. About how many more cups of milk will a cow give in 1 year than a goat? I underlined my question. What's my action word? More. That tells me I'm comparing the cow's milk to the goat's milk. Now I need to evaluate and make my plan to solve. So I'm going to again write below Maybe you write this on the side or on a scrap piece of paper or on your slate. I'm going to write down what I know. So I know for cows, and I'm going to write down what I know for the goats. So in one day, how much milk does a cow produce? 400 cups. Write that down. In one day, a goat produces how much milk? 8 cups. What's the question asking? Is it asking us to compare the difference in how much the cows and the goats make in one day? No, it says in 1 year. Well, 1 year is how many days? 1 year is 365 days. So this time I'm going to say 365 days, and I don't know how many cups that's going to be. I have to solve 365 days, how many cups? What do you think I'm going to multiply by to be able to get how many cups a cow makes in 365 days? Did you say 400 cups times 365? Yeah, that's what I would do too. But when I do my estimating, 400 times 365 rounds up to 400. I can do that math a lot quicker. And my estimation here would be 4 times 4, which is 16. And then I'm going to add on my zeros just like I did in the previous problem. And I'm going to get about 160,000 cups. I'll do the same thing for my goats. 400 days times 8 cups. 4 times 8 gives me 32. Then I put my 2 zeros onto the end, and I get 3,200 cups. When I do my estimate, I'll have to find the difference. Then I'll have to do 160,000 minus 3,200. Go ahead and do that now. You could use your calculator if you would need to. So when I do my solving, I get my estimate is about 156,800. That's my estimate. And so when I write down my steps, the first thing that I did was I did 400 times 400 equals 160,000. Then I did 400 times 8 equals 3,200. Then the last step I did was my 160,000 minus 3,200, and that got me 156,800. That's my estimate. Now to find my actual, this is really when I'm going to use my calculator. When I find my answer, I'm going to do the 400 cups times 365 days, and that gives me 400 times 365. Go ahead and do that in your calculator, and then you're going to do 365 days times 8 and that will give you how much milk the goats produce in a year. And when I use my calculator and do 400 times 365, I got 146,000. And when I did my goat, so 365 days times 8 cups, I got 2,920. Now I need to do my cows minus my goats to be able to find the actual answer. So I'm going to do 146,000 minus 290,000. You should be doing this in your calculator as well. And you'll get an answer of 143,080. That is your actual answer. So a cow makes on average 143,080 cups more milk in 1 year than a goat. Is our answer reasonable? We're comparing these two numbers. Yes. How do we know? I know my answer is reasonable because my answer of 143,080 cups is close to my estimate of 156,800 cups. Again, this takes a lot of thinking and a lot of work. I need to see this written work on your page or on a scrap piece of paper when you turn in your assignment. So pause your video if you still have things to copy down. So I'm going to change this problem. Instead of it being a we do, it's going to be a challenge. So it's going to be a you do. Do you think you can solve it? I'll go ahead and I'll set the problem up with you and then you will solve it on your own. So a giant anteater eats about 300 insects a day. 30,000 insects a day. An aardvark eats about 50,000 insects per day. About how many insects do one giant anteater and one aardvark eat in 1 year? When I look at my question, I know it's asking me to combine the giant anteater plus the aardvark. These are both types of animals, and that's going to give me, my plus sign's not very good, that's going to give me my total, right? But they ask in 1 year. So I'm going to have to do, I know that the giant anteater eats about 30,000 insects in 1 day. But how many insects does it eat in 365 days? That's 1 whole year, right? So you're going to have to do 30,000 times 365, or 400 for your estimate. And then your aardvark eats about 50,000 in one day. So you'll have to figure out how many insects they eat in 365 days. And it wants to know how many do they eat in 1 year. So you're going to add them together. So I'm going to do G for giant anteater and then A for aardvark. So then you'll do G plus A, and that will give you your total. You can do it. We did lots of practice on the last two problems. You may use your calculator to help you. So you're going to solve and then answer the questions. You'll write down your estimate and then you'll write down your actual answer. Your answer will be reasonable if your answer is close to your estimate. Now you're going to work on page number 109, which has some practicing multi-digit addition and subtraction problems. You have to fill in the missing digits. I'm going to do a couple with you, and then you'll do a few on your own. So let's skip to number 2. So in order for me to solve this problem correctly, I have to start all the way in the ones place. So when I start in the ones place, I look and I see that there's a 4, then I add some number, but a 2 comes out. And I know that I'm doing addition. So when it goes to a smaller number, that tells me that I'm going to be adding and getting over 10, because then I'm going to carry a digit over into the next place value. Can you think of a number that 4 plus what gives you an outcome with a 2 and a 1 up here? 4 plus what gives you 12? 4 plus 8 gives you 12. Then I have 1 plus 2 plus something gives me 5. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus what gives me 5? 3 plus 2 gives me 5. On the next one, we can just do 5 plus 9. What's 5 plus 9? 5 plus 9 gives me 14, and I have to carry my 1. I can check my work to make sure that I'm going to get 8 at the bottom here. 1 plus 3 is 4. 4 plus 4 is... Does it match up? It does. It's 8. And then how do I get 6 plus what gives me 7? 6 plus 1 gives me 7. So, explain. Number 3 says explain how you solved problem 2. Well, you just started. I started in the ones place and solved each place value to match the given numbers. Something like that. So now you're going to do number 1. And you'll do number 4 on your own as well, but I'm going to help you by showing you number 5. So, the subtraction ones are a little bit tricky. So what I want you to think about is, if I start in the ones place again, I have to start here. If the 1 is crossed out, I know that's going to be, it has to be 11. Because I cannot do 1 take away 4. 11 take away 4, 11 minus 4 gives me 7. I had to borrow from my 2 here, but when I look at the digits 2 minus 5, I can't do that either. So I was going to have to borrow from the next place value over to get me to 12. But I had to borrow again to be able to do 11 minus 4 in my ones column. So that leaves me with 11. 11 take away 5 gives me 6. Now remember, I had to borrow from the 3 in order to make this a 2. Or a 12, I'm sorry. So this started with a different number though. I had to subtract one group when I borrowed, so 1 larger than 3 gives me 4. I would have had to cross that off to get this 3 up here. I can check my work by asking, does 13 minus 7 give me 6? Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at I had to borrow in the hundreds place, which means I'm going to have to cross off my 2 in my thousands place and make it a 1. But can I do 1 take away 3? 1 take away 3? No. So I'm going to have to make it an 11, and I'm going to have to change my digit in my 5 or in my 10,000s to a 4. 11 minus 3, I'm back in my thousands place, is 8, and 4 minus 3 is 1. So my answer is 18,667. When we answer number 6, it's going to look very similar to what you wrote in number 3. We started in the ones place and solved each digit to match the given numbers in the place value. So you can write the same thing down. Now you're going to work on 4 and 1 on your own. Then you're going to work on math box 4.2 and complete whatever else is in Canvas that your teacher has assigned to you. Don't forget on number 5, you need to count the jumps, not just the number of lines. You need to count the jumps instead of just counting the number of spaces. Remember, perimeter is when you add all the sides. So it's length plus width equals perimeter. You're going to have to do cubes for the other problems in this math box. And remember, in 1 meter, there are 100 centimeters. That's going to help you with number 2. You'll need a growth mindset to finish these journal pages because this was a pretty long lesson. Have an awesome